Aiko rose early on a pale morning. She stared at an empty chair across her desk. Just weeks ago, her closest friend, Sam, left for the Omega colony. They grew up together on Earth. Now he lived far away in the belt of asteroids he had promised to write and call, but the messages came slow like a dying star. Aiko missed the sound of his voice. She missed his laugh at her jokes. The quiet in her flat felt heavy. She touched the hollow picture of them by the beach. Warm sand, bright sun, carefree days. She felt a hollow ache in her chest. She wondered if she had done enough to keep him close. It felt wrong that someone who knew her so well could be so far. She closed her eyes. Tears came slowly. Hope felt small inside her heart. She took a deep breath and made herself stand. She promised herself that she would find a way to reach him. At mid-morning, Aiko went to her desk. She tapped her console and waited. Light flickered as the system searched the data streams. A small chime broke the silence. A message from Sam arrived. It read, "I miss you." Aiko read it again. It was days old. She pressed reply. Her fingers trembled. She wrote about her day, her new experiments, her lonely evenings. She added a funny story about the robot cat she built. Then she hesitated. Would her words reach him in time? Would they still matter when the signal finally got there? She deleted parts and rewrote. She wanted to say more, but she did not know how. The console dinged again, but no new message came. As the emptiness returned, she felt small against the vast sky beyond her window. Still, she held on to hope like a fragile seed in dark soil. Late that afternoon, Aiko walked to the central comm hub. It stood tall beside the shining spires of the city. Inside, dozens of people waited in line. Some sent messages to family on Mars, others to friends on Titan. Aiko watched them. Parents wiped tears. Couples held hands. A few showed hope in their eyes. She joined the line. When she reached the booth, she recorded her voice. She spoke in a calm tone, telling Sam how much she cared. The recorder glowed as it built the signal. Then she left the device to the staff. As she stepped out, she saw a young man hug a screen. His tears fell on the glass. Aiko felt the power of connection. She thought of all the ships, all the colonies. The galaxy felt too big, but then she thought of Earth, of human will, of the times they crossed oceans and scaled mountains. If humans could do that, they could cross starfields too. That night, Aiko returned to her lab. She glanced at her own pad. It sat silent. She sat at her workbench. She sketched a new idea on a holopad, a quantum link that could carry messages without delay. It sounded impossible, but she remembered how humans once moved faster than sound, how they conquered the sky, how they reached the moon. She called two close friends, May and Carlos. She showed them her sketch. First they laughed. The plan seemed crazy, but Aiso's eyes shone with fire. She spoke of hope, of the bond she shared with Sam. May and Carlos felt that spark too. They worked together through the night. They tested circuits, rewrote code, soldered new chips. They drank hot tea and joked about how tired they were. All the while, Aiko felt a glow in her heart. Hope grew stronger than fear. By dawn, the device stood on the lab table. Aiko pressed a small button. A soft hum filled the room. She heard a faint crackle, then a clear voice. Aiko, is that really you? It was Sam. His voice trembled. Aiko's eyes filled with tears of joy. She smiled and spoke into the tiny speaker. They caught up on small things first. Then she shared her new invention. Sam laughed and called it pure human magic. He said he felt closer than he had in weeks. Aiko stepped outside to watch the rising sun, painted the sky in pink and gold. She held the device close. She thought of all the lonely hearts out there. She knew distance could not break their bonds. Humans never gave up. They found a way. And in that moment, Aiko felt hope bloom like a new star across the dark. She knew this was only the beginning. As she stepped back into the lab, she carried a bright spark in her chest. She felt ready for the next step. Aiko woke early to the hum of her quantum link device. It sat on her workbench, still glowing from yesterday's test. Her lab smelled of solder and tea. She stepped over schematics scattered like fallen leaves on the floor. Each paper held a dream of reconnecting with Sam. She pressed its main switch. The screen flickered, then showed a brief image of Sam's smile before breaking apart. Iso's heart sank at the sudden void. She felt a hollow ache in her chest. She held the device tightly, as if it could not break. Her hair and set to work. She took a deep breath and whispered, "I will make it last." She refused to accept defeat. Humans never gave up against impossible odds. Then she looked out at the pale sky and promised herself a new day of work. A week later, Aiko climbed aboard a small shuttle bound for Vega Research Station. The station orbited a blue gas giant near the Omega colony. She carried a case full of tools and her quantum device. As the shuttle left Earth's orbit, she watched the planet shrink into a blue marble. She thought of Sam's laughter and the warm sun on his face. Her hands trembled as she set the device on her lap. She placed a small hologram of Sam on the case, lit and tapped its image for strength. She reviewed her notes and double-checked each schematic before departure. She closed her eyes and recited quietly, "I will find you, Sam, no matter how far." Hope warmed her heart as the shuttle thrummed beneath her seat, pushing her toward the unknown. At the station labs, Aiko met Dr. Lin, a programming specialist, and Engineer Ortis, a robotics expert. They greeted her with curious eyes and genuine smiles. Dr. Lin's soft voice carried a Titan accent she found comforting. Ortis's metal hands moved with precise care as it examined the device's circuits. The lab smelled of ozone and old coffee. Aiko explained her goal, a stable instant link across the void. Lin studied the data streams, while Ortis suggested adding a crystal amplifier and a lattice of entangled particles for clearer lines. ICO's eyes lit up at the idea. The team worked through long hours, soldering parts and typing code. Shared tea from Earth's highlands and told stories of home. When the device buzzed with life, Sam's voice crackled through softly. They all cheered. In that moment, Aiko felt the power of human collaboration and kindness. Late that night, after the third test, the link died again. Sam's voice faded mid-sentence, leaving only static hiss. ICO's shoulders sagged and tears blurred her vision. She shut off the device and stared at her reflection in the dark screen. The station's recycled air felt cold and still. Replayed Sam's last words in her mind, then remembered her father's advice. Always push forward. A fierce resolve grew inside her. She rose and walked to the station's observation deck. Through the curved windows, she saw the swirling gases of the planet below and a distant fleet of freighters. One crew waved at the station's lights, a small gesture of hope. She smiled despite her sadness. If humans could bridge galaxies with ships, she could bridge hearts with light. With renewed purpose, she returned to the lab and sketched new designs. At dawn, the lab team gathered around the console. Aiko had refined her design, adding a second crystal and an improved algorithm. She pressed the power key and held her breath. The device glowed with a gentle blue light. Soft chime rang out, then words, "Aiko, you're there?" Sam's voice came through clear and steady. A wave of joy crashed over her. She laughed and wiped tears from her eyes. She answered, "I'm here, Sam. I can hear you." The station crew clapped and cheered. Dr. Lin smiled wide, and Ortis's mechanical joints moved in a happy rhythm. Aiko realized her work meant more than her own longing. She recorded the final specs and uploaded them to a shared network so families across the galaxy could connect. She felt proud of the human spirit and its ability to unite. Later, Aiko boarded the shuttle home, carrying her polished device like a treasure. Outside the window, the gas giant's storms faded into the void. She thought of Sam's home on the far colony. Soon she would visit him and share new inventions. Distance felt less daunting now that she had built a bridge of light. On Earth, she would plant a tree in Sam's honor and write songs about hope. She looked at the rising sun painting the sky in orange and gold. Her chest swelled with pride and optimism. Humans never stopped when faced with darkness. They rose, they invented, they reached across emptiness. And in that truth, Eiko knew, no distance could ever break the bonds she held dear. Eiko stood at the airlock hatch while the starship's engines thrummed behind her. She held her small device close to her chest. It glowed with soft blue light, a promise of a voice she missed. Beyond the hatch lay the silent halls of the Vega. Transport. Her heart pounded like a drum in her ears. She climbed aboard and found her seat by the window. She watched as Earth grew small against the black sky. She felt a mix of fear and hope. Would Sam still remember her? Would her human stubbornness and care be enough to bridge the distance between them? The transporter hummed through space toward the Omega colony. Eiko met the ship's crew over shared meals of rehydrated vegetables. Navigator Jorin was quick with a joke about Earth's famous tea. Engineer Novik asked her questions about the quantum link device and how it might help. Others reached loved ones. Eiko explained in simple words. Humans never give up when a friend is far away. She showed them her plans to add more power cells and better signal crystals. They listened and then offered their own ideas. In their small way, they all joined. Her mission. Halfway through the journey, alarms shrieked in the corridor. Solar storm had struck without warning, shaking the ship and cutting power to the drive. Lights flickered and machines groaned. Novik ran to the engine room while Eiko followed with her device in hand. She watched Novik work with cold metal and broken wires. Then she remembered all the stories of human explorers, how they crossed deserts and oceans when hope was thin. She knelt beside Novik and offered her own tools. Together they reconnected a burnt circuit and rerouted energy through a spare cell. The engines roared back to life. Eiko felt pride swell in her chest. Even in the void of space, human skill and cooperation could light the way. When the ship finally slipped into orbit around Omega Colony, the world below looked like a city of glass towers and soft lights. Eiko felt a brief pang of loneliness. Everything here was new and strange. She carried her device to the colony's hub, a tall building of chrome and quiet halls. She set it on a clean table and activated its uplink. The machine hummed, searching for Sam's signal. She watched the screen flicker, but only her own reflection stared back in the glass. Doubt pressed on her shoulders. She missed the warmth of his laugh and the easy way he understood her. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Stay with me." Old Omega resident named Mara approached. She wore simple clothes and bright eyes. "Are you Earthborn?" Mara asked gently. Eiko nodded. Mara told her stories of human explorers who brought new tools and new hope to their world. She spoke of children who learned Earth songs and farmers who built solar farms from human designs. Eiko realized that her own efforts were part of something larger, the way humanity shared care across the galaxy. The tears in Eiko's eyes felt less sharp. Hope returned in her chest like a second heartbeat. At last the uplink lit up. Soft chime rang through the hub. ICO's breath caught as a face appeared on the screen, Sam's face. With dust from asteroid fields on his cheeks and a shy smile in his eyes. "Eiko," he said, voice trembling. "I did not think I would hear you so soon." She smiled until her cheeks ached. "I never stopped trying," she replied. Sam laughed softly and told her about the small garden he had built beside his home on Omega. He said he planted earth seeds that bloomed under twin moons. ICO's heart soared. They spoke of small things of a rainstorm and of a song she had written and of big things, of their hopes to work together on new projects. When Eiko finally stepped out into Omega's cool evening, the sky shone with two pale moons. She carried the device under her arm and followed the path to Sam's home. Each step felt lighter than the one before. She thought of Earth's oceans, of its mountains, and of all the places humans once crossed when no road existed. Could do that? Then no distance, not even between stars, could keep her from a friend. She reached Sam's front door and he opened it with just a small knock. They stood there for a moment, smiling at each other like two planets finally in alignment. Inside his home, Sam showed her the garden. Petals glowed under the lamplight. He handed her a small blossom and earth marigold. Aiko held it gently. She felt the human spirit in that soft flower, in Sam's quiet pride, and in her own steady hope. Across the void, they had found each other again, and though the galaxy was wide, her heart knew that no distance could break the bond she and Sam had forged, a bond built on will, kindness, and the simple power of hope. Aiko sat at her workbench in her home lab on Earth. The air felt heavy and still. She stared at the small communication device she had built to talk to Sam on Omega Colony. It glowed softly, waiting for her voice. Sam had stayed behind when she returned to Earth. Now he lived under twin moons, while she lived under the one sun they both loved. Aiko felt a hollow ache in her chest. Each morning she woke and reached for the device. Then she remembered that distance still lay between them. She pressed her palms on the cool metal and wondered how to close the gap. She tried sending messages, but the link sometimes cut out. On a busy weekday, she tapped out a long letter about her day. She told Sam about new inventions and shared jokes they once laughed over. She hit send and waited. Hours passed. Her console showed delivered, but she felt no reply. The silence pressed on her. She missed the way his laugh soothed her and how his questions spurred her ideas. Doubt crept in. Did he still care? Was she wasting her hope on thin signals? Across the void? That evening, Aiko left her lab and walked through the city's spired streets. Lights glowed along the river. Families gathered at outdoor markets. Children waved at screens showing faraway friends. Aiko paused by one display. On it, two sisters on Mars sent voice clips back and forth. Their joy was clear in their laughter. Aiko pressed her finger to the glass as if she could touch their warmth. She closed her eyes and let herself remember all that humans could do. When they refused to quit, she smiled through tears. She would not give up. Humans never quit when a friend is far away. The next morning, Aiko sent invitations to friends and colleagues. She asked them to join her in building stronger links. In her lab, she set up benches of tools and crystals. Soon, her three closest friends arrived: May, a coder; Carlos, an engineer; and June, a materials scientist. They smiled and settled around her workbench. "Let's make this link better than ever," Aiko said. She laid out her new design for a crystal mesh that might amplify Sam's voice and carry more warmth in each word. May wrote code. Carlos tested circuits. Jun wove the crystals into a lattice. They laughed and shared stories late into the night. With each spark of solder, Aiko felt the warmth of human teamwork and hope. Weeks passed as they built and tested. Dozens of devices. They set one in ICO's lab, another at a school, and a third in a park. Aiko showed each device how to tune its signal for better clarity. She encouraged children to send messages of support. She held workshops where families recorded holiday stories, birthday songs, and simple "I miss you" notes. Slowly, a network formed across the city. Aiko watched as glowing lines mapped from her lab to homes and schools. At each end, people spoke into small speakers and heard replies in return. The hum of connection felt like a song of hope. Finally, Aiko prepared for a citywide test day. She invited everyone to Central Square. A stage stood beneath tall banners that read, "Earth to Omega, we reach you." Aiko climbed onto the platform at sunrise. A gentle breeze stirred the crowd. She held Sam's device in her hand. "Today, we prove that no distance can break our bonds," she said. She pressed the button and spoke into the microphone. "Hello, Sam. It's me, Aiko." All at once, the square fell silent. A soft voice came through every device. "Aiko, hear you clearly." It was Sam. His words traveled thousands of kilometers of space and reached every heart in the crowd. Cheers rose like a wave. People hugged and cried tears of joy. Aisu's eyes shone as she listened. Sam spoke of how much he missed home and how her voice warmed him under Omega's moons. He thanked her for never giving up. That day, the city learned the power of human will Aiko realized that her sadness had led to something greater than herself. She built not just a link between two people, but a bridge across worlds. Hope glowed in every face around her. As the sun climbed higher, Aiko looked at the cheering crowd and felt pride blaze in her heart. Humans never surrendered to loneliness or distance. They reached out and found each other again. And in that simple truth, she discovered the deepest hope of all. Aiko stood at the rim of Earth's great observatory, staring up at the night sky. The city behind her glowed softly with thousands of lights each, one marking a home linked by her new network. In her hand, she held a small, humming communicator. The latest model she and her friends had built. It carried voices and laughter across the void without delay. She pressed the button, and Sam's face appeared in a bright window. He wore a smile as warm as sunrise on Omega. "Eiko," he said, "your work changed everything here." His words made her chest swell. She had felt alone when he moved away. Now they shared every sunrise and every late-night thought as, if distance did not exist, a gentle wind stirred her hair. Aiko thought back to the first day she missed Sam's laugh. She remembered her sadness and her choice to act. Humans never let sorrow stop them. They turned grief into invention. She smiled as Sam waved goodbye for now. They would meet soon in person this time. Behind her, a group of young engineers arrived, carrying a new batch of devices. They would take them to the Martian colonies next. Aiko showed them how to tune the crystal mesh for dusty skies and thin air. She spoke in clear, simple words, and they listened with shining eyes. She felt proud to share human skill and hope with the next generation. That afternoon, Aiko traveled to the spaceport. She boarded a freighter bound for Mars. As the engines roared, she watched Earth shrink into a blue pearl. She thought of all the families on Mars who longed for voices from home. She held her device close and whispered, "I'll bring hope to them too." On Mars, she visited a small school in the dusty town of Novus. Children crowded around her as she set up the communicator. One by one, they spoke to parents on Earth. Their laughter rang through the courtyard like music. Aiso's eyes filled with tears of joy. Here was proof that humans could cross seas, mountains, and stars just to hear a loved one say hello. In the evening, Aiko climbed a red dune to watch Mars's twin moons rise. She sent a voice clip to Sam. "Look, I'm under your sky tonight." He replied, "And I'm under yours." Their simple exchange felt like a bridge of light spanning millions of miles. Later, back aboard the freighter, Aiko opened her journal. She sketched plans for more powerful relays, for solar-powered beacons on asteroid outposts. She wrote down every idea until the pages were full. Hope burned bright in her heart. When the ship reached Earth again, Aiko stepped onto the landing pad under the same sun that once felt too lonely. Now it felt like a promise. Humanity's power was not in weapons or walls, but in the will to connect, to care, and to never give up. Aiko looked up into the sky, where blinking satellites traced silent paths. She whispered a thanks to the stars, and to Earth, home of the bravest hearts in the galaxy. Humans had heard the call of distance, and they had answered with light, with voice, and above all, with hope.